Hello, my name is Franco Tenelle and this is Science of Singing. We're going to talk and demonstrate something called Chiaro, scuro resonance and support. We all know that human voice has different registers like chest and head voice and its subdivisions, Chiaro, scuro and head falsetto. We are going to talk in this program mostly about Chiaro, scuro or theatrical projection, its resonance and its support, and why it should be considered one tempo technique or singing approach with one register only called Chiaro, scuro. You hear about so-called theatrical tenor like Lauri Volpi or Mario del Monaco, and you may say that such a category as theatrical tenor does not exist. But it describes a voice that can be heard during the performance without amplification in every corner of the huge theater like La Scala or Metropolitan Opera. What the science of singing tells us responsible for that projection? Scientifically speaking, so-called high vocal formant that lies in an area of 2500-3200 Hz. We call it Chiaro, but don't make a mistake. Chiaro cannot exist without scuro, and scuro cannot exist without Chiaro. Because Chiaro scuro is not two separate registers put together, one monolith register. Chiaro scuro is born out of chest falsetto. Falsetto can be both chest and head. Chest voice and falsetto in comparison. Dio mi potevi, Dio mi potevi. Like head falsetto, chest falsetto is voice register. Vocal cords are not closing up fully, like in case of head falsetto. Dio mi potevi. When you so-called reinforce head falsetto, it turns into a head voice, a human register. When you reinforce chest falsetto, it becomes the beginning of Chiaro scuro voice. Head voice cannot be turned into a chest voice smoothly because they have different positions of the throat, different positions of the larynx. In light classical genres, where Chiaro scuro is not used as a main register, transition from chest voice to head voice can happen very smoothly by gradual lowering or raising larynx position. Here is example of such transition with non-classical voice, with non-Chiaro scuro voice. But let me make it clear. In this program, I talk about operatic projection, theatrical projection, called Chiaro scuro. So, I can make some analogies with non-Chiaro scuro projection, but the main goal of this program is to show you what is Chiaro scuro, what is theatrical projection. So, let's go back to formats. What frequencies are responsible for such projection? Well, scientifically speaking, so-called high vocal formant that lies in an area of 2500 or 3200 Hz. We call it Chiaro, but don't make a mistake. Chiaro cannot exist without scuro frequency. Chiaro and scuro are not separate registers, as one may logically think, but inseparable elements of the theatrical sound, often called as Chiaro scuro. Good analogy, I think, comes comparing it with Japanese samurai bushido sword layers, which are two. The one that cuts, analogy Chiaro, and the one that sustains and cushions, scuro. They cannot function separately. If you make it only with the cutting layer, it will break after first serious strike. You can make it with only deeper layer and then it will last, but cut little. The Chiaro scuro technique allows singer to project well in big and huge theaters. Here you see and hear the example of a rehearsal of Aida taken from the last row of the theater corner. So let's discover how to get this theatrical projection and how to keep it without destroying one's voice. But first, let's look at what we are learning at local schools to understand this problem deeper. If you were a diligent classical voice student at the college, later doing artist diploma at your local university, and you're lucky to have a maestro who taught you well how to sing French songs, German lieder, Russian romances to be heard in acoustically small resonant places. Of course, you've never been told that. That would be a negative advertisement to your school, obviously. Suddenly, it appears to you that in order to have a job as a solo singer, you learn that most of the jobs are in opera and not concerts. Don't you think that making a career of a recitalist is easy? There are much more competition for not theatrical voices than for opera voices. To make a career for a recitalist requires to have not only excellent voice, but great charisma and musicality, and realization that only few singers in the world can make career as solo recitalists. Whether you have a great passion for opera or just realization mentioned above, first time when you audition for serious opera company, you'll hear something like that. Of course, if they feedback you. What a nice voice, unfortunately, will not project in our big theater. That rejection may devastate you as a singer and as a person, because nobody told you that you wasted your precious 7 years learning voice at prestigious school and even been told of having an opera voice because you did Don Giovanni's role at your opera atelier at school. Let me defend this time the schools I often criticize. First, I don't think you were wasting your time there. You learn how to sing, to follow conductor, to lead, to sight read, languages, etc. But today, most of the schools are afraid, even if they are real opera maestros there, to teach opera per se. You'll be greatly surprised that goes for schools that mean to do so, so-called opera departments in universities. One might say, "Oh, sheer nonsense, where did you get such an information?" Take Portland State University, head of department at the time, Ruth Dobson, confessing that even her opera school is afraid to prepare real opera voices. Let's hear what she says about it. "I have a confession to make. I'm afraid that we, academics, may be destroying a whole generation of young singers. We are afraid to make them sound like opera singers because we fear if they heard their little voices, we'll lose our jobs." Ruth Dobson, head of Portland State University Opera Department. Why I am defending the schools in that case? Because it seems that schools, don't have a choice. We've heard already, if they heard their little voices, they lose their jobs. Out of the school protectionism comes misunderstanding that school can prepare you for the opera career full-time is incorrect. Does it mean that we should all abandon schools and go to study privately with real opera maestros who are not afraid to teach us real opera projection? I really don't encourage that because you still learn a great deal of singing, languages, styles. All I say, don't be naive thinking that after you've graduated with summa cum laude, you will pass any opera audition. So you're finally disappointed in schools, in its methods of education, and you go studying privately with a teacher who knows that magic opera projection style. Here, like anywhere else, you may meet a real opera maestro who teaches you that magic style of grand opera. Usually, he states, all you've learned in schools was wrong, meaning that schools did not teach you a real projection suitable for opera career. After a statement like this, you feel like you wasted your 7 best years of vocal life. I'd say you did not waste your time, but maybe it's even better that you started opera classes not from the very beginning, but when you were mature musicians and singers. Opera departments should be staying as postgraduate faculties, extensions to conservatories and universities, and only those should be accepted who really have opera potentials, passing a certain test. Now, coming back at opera projection style and realizing its dangers. Statement 1. Discovering a new placement, position of the throat, larynx, where you can be louder and sound Chiaro scuro style is very first step. It's maestro's responsibility to feed you back if you really have that Chiaro scuro sound, because very often you may think or you may sound big to yourself and even to some audiences, a small or spacey studio with great ambience, where in fact your voice will fail to project an opera with orchestra. Statement 2. Immediately, maestro should teach that student not only how to produce that resonance, but how to support it. Otherwise, he'll be forcing that sound and damaging his vocal cords. An example of Chiaro scuro resonance without support, just pushing. A sound you've heard may confuse you because you might think, what's wrong with that? It sounds like an opera singer singing. To show you mistakes of this approach, I will show you some phrasing from Aida. And then you understand the difference between appoggio chiaroscuro and just resonance screaming out loud. Here's the phrase from Celeste Aida.
Un regola smerto sul crino posarti e c'è un trono vicino al sol. Un riga seto sul crino posarti.
You hear forcing out resonance in this last example. This is of course one of the worst examples, the resonance singer singing an opera Chiaro scuro voice without proper support. But if you're an experienced voice student or opera lover, you already heard voices singing like this, even in major opera houses, unfortunately. We hear resonance and a projective force in singer's voice, and it seems that the singer is almost ready for opera auditions. But this voice, though projective at certain tessitura, is not balanced with the rest of this register and terribly forcing. In real appoggio, 99% of the voice weight goes to supporting muscles, abdominals and diaphragm. Singer feels relief from tensions in the throat, if he does it properly of course, but at the same time feels very physical in a low body, if he never before used appoggio as a singing tool. Some temporary tensions may occur in the body, and singer has to be intelligent not to overwork appoggio tensions. Appoggio, as I stated in my many previous programs, is very physical, and before you build some appoggio muscles like an athlete, you should be careful not to be overzealous. It may cause you smile coming from Pavarotti type of singer, because by being athletic, we mean usually somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, definitely not Pavarotti. Pavarotti of course meant physicality of supporting muscles in the belly area. Maestro Placido Domingo challenged Jerome Hines by saying that he can punch his belly while he sings and that will not disrupt his voice. Any true appoggio singer can challenge anybody doing the same thing. Appoggio singer, like a real athlete, has a very athletic belly, has a strong and agile muscles. I use this trick of Maestro Domingo to show my students if it's really true. So, projection and support, appoggio, should work together, though projection can be discovered first without proper support. What I mean by that is that certain placement can produce a screamy and loud projective sound with a small opposition from the diaphragm, but can be very dangerous if not supported. Well, because all the push is taken by vocal folds, and typically resonance singers feel their throat acutely. They have difficulty singing after warm-ups because they feel tired in the throat. Young appoggio beginner singers, on the contrary, feel tired in the body. Worst thing occur when so-called resonance singers start their career without proper support. Such singers can scream one or two audition arias, sometimes getting a job, and then a real nightmare starts. Having opera career with no proper appoggio technique will screw up their unprepared voices in no time. Best of them can last 3-5 years and then collapse. Who or what is to blame? Incompetent maestro? Student's incredible ambition? Opera agent? Singer's choice of repertoire? Or all of the above? Let's take on teachers first. In choosing a teacher, you may find this 5 category of different types of teacher very interesting to look at. Here it is. First category. The teacher is an academic. Second, the teacher studied to be an opera singer but never reached the professional stage. Number 3. The teacher sang professionally for a few years, probably as a leading soloist in major houses. Number 4. The teacher had long, successful singing career. Number 5. The teacher never formally studied voice, but has been an accompanist or a singing coach for years. Good teachers can come from any of these 5 categories, but each category will have its own built-in problem, stated Jerome Hines. You may guess yourself what kind of problems. He also states that half of the university voice graduates sing either wrong repertoire or in a wrong vocal category, or as we say, Fach. I stated in my previous programs that the same man's voice can have 2 or 3 voices depending on the technique. But if he dreams to be an opera singer, he has to choose the one that has real projection appropriate for the repertoire he sings. Baritone who sings Don Giovanni usually cannot sing Iago in Verdi's Otello, though they both have the same Fach, baritone. Tenors are usually even less versatile than baritones. Rossini tenor will never sing Verdian Rose unless he changes his technique dramatically. And what those Fach defectors do usually first is finding a new placement to support bigger sound, sticking unfortunately to the support they used before in a previous Fach or sub-Fach, let's say dramatic lyric. Finding only resonance is like building strong arms without having strong legs, especially if you're prepared to be a wrestler. Why a real appoggio technique is less known and taught less than a placement technique. Placement technique allows you to discover a resonance or resonances by placing voice here and there, and therefore ends up being multitembral or singing with registers technique. At its best, this placement technique, if not destroys voices, but at least makes voice less beautiful, because you hear those technicalities in the voice. You hear that technique. As a great martial artist and teacher, Bruce Lee once said, "The best technique is no technique." What he meant by that in our context is what, in fact, it seems so easy and effortless, so you don't think that opera is difficult at all. Since real appoggio opera singer doesn't use much of an upper body, and even his face is relaxed. You remember some famous opera singers with sour or serious, unexpressive faces during the whole opera singing process, and you might blame them for just being bad actors. It might be case too, but the real problem lies that they are very tight in their faces, and that itself makes their faces inexpressive. I want to say that methods of any kind don't teach anybody. They just mean to confuse, especially in hands of ignorant maestros who have no experience of how voice should sound and what are the most important things in voice development. Methods can be used in hands of those who know them by experience, not by theory. Theory just helps them to be more structural in explaining and building the voice, but without experience, any method, even if it sounds the best of all existing ones, like appoggio, can be misunderstood and malfunction. Real opera maestros, especially with young opera fanatics, have to be careful just teaching them resonance without proper support. This is the fast way, leading to an early end of career and possible damage to the voice. To avoid that, I suggest to find a real maestro and start with small coprimario roles just to feel the real acoustic environment of a large opera house. But try to stay as coprimario just a limited time if you are. If you stay quite a long time in secondary roles, it will be difficult to convince opera bosses that you are capable of doing a lead role. Great example is dramatic tenor James McCracken, who had been a coprimario in Met for years and been so good that another coprimario was jealous of his prima voce, was convincing him to leave his job at the Met and go to Europe to start a solo career. He wanted, according to the story, just get rid of great voice and stayed as primo coprimario, and even found some money to send him there. To everybody's surprise, Maestro James McCracken came back as a great star and sang all dramatic tenor parts in Metropolitan Opera. Like gospel reads that prophet is never recognized in his own country, great singer is rarely recognized in his own country or the place he was born. In Enrico Caruso's case, it was even worse. When he came back to Naples as a star, he was booed and badly criticized by Neapolitans. Caruso felt so offended that he promised never sing in Napoli again, and he kept his promises. I'm sure today all the Neapolitans are proud that Caruso was born there. Speaking of Caruso, he applied appoggio technique and understood voice as one register along with Lily Lemon and other great singers like Beniamino Gigli or Jerome Hines. Great singers and teachers of the past knew about this phenomena, though they found it's not typical for that period. Like great castrato soprano Mancini says that normally there are two registers and people sing with these two registers, chest and falsetto, but notes that there are some rare voices capable of singing with one register, chest register, or chiaro scuro in modern vocal terms. Remember that Mancini died 1800, way before those voices were demanded on a regular basis, like in Verdi, Puccini, Donizetti. Falsetto and separate chest use explains why castrati were capable of singing 3 and more octaves of range. Venues back then were not as large as today's opera houses and did not need to be as projective as today's opera voices, often called Verdian or Wagnerian ones. What modern acoustic vocal science says about so-called one solid register, or chiaro scuro. It knows it well, also technologically or mechanically. In order to achieve that oneness, acoustic ambience should not change, meaning that larynx position is fixed, regardless to where singer sings, low or high. It doesn't mean that everybody are applying that rule. Placement singers don't. Placement singers sing with registers, mostly very lyric and high voices because they can be beautiful without fixed larynx position. The bigger the voice, the uglier the registral connection. Inconsistency of reach with overtone voices are spotted easier by listener's ear, and then we have that some people call big and ugly, or more diplomatically, big and clumsy. For some strange reason, placement teachers and singers deny one solid register singing technique, though it was known in early 17th century. I guess it's easier to deny something you don't know rather than try to understand what was understood and practiced long time ago. Science goes on, and there is no need to discover America again.